Right, I think we're ready to get started. Hello, good morning. Welcome, everyone.
Allison, did you have a question? I thought Griselle was going to present with you.
He could not make it this morning. His it was his granddaughter's birthday party. Yeah. 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 Yeah, but that's a great way for me to introduce myself. My name is Todd Sample. I am the co-chair of the Capital Campaign Committee. Because Paul Griselle is the other half of the half of the chair. Anyway, he can't be here this morning. He regrets it, but obviously a 4-year-old's birthday party, pretty important if it's your granddaughter. So before we get started, Carol, could you, as vestry member, just give a brief introduction for us here?
Sure. I'm Carol Cohen. I'm one of the 2 wardens on the vestry right now. And I've been on the vestry 3 years prior. So through this whole process of the capital campaign, I've been part of the group that kind of found people like Todd and Paul to help us with all of fundraising and all of the steps involved in it. And in an earlier life, I was a project accountant. So having a meeting like this kind of midway through a big building project seemed like a good thing for us to do. So here we are, and we'll get an update on how things are going with physical property, with finances, and then also learn about this.
Great. Do you want to go to the next slide? And we'll kick things off as we always do with a prayer of thanksgiving, which I think is especially important, and you'll see given the generosity of this congregation and all of the gifts that we have received as a part of this campaign.
The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we thank you that you have put it into the hearts of the people of St. Clement's to preserve the sacred space that holds us in worship and stands fast as a figure of beauty and sanctuary in our neighborhood. Be with us now and bless us as we celebrate the work that has been completed and as we prepare for that which lies ahead. For us, for our neighbors, and most of all to you, O Lord our God, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
So just to give you a sense of the agenda, we just covered the prayer. Sorry, Nils.
As long as we're setting the
Sorry, Nils. There we go.
Let's close the
We'll do a brief history of the Capital Campaign to give you some context and grounding in what's happened, and then we'll talk about what I think is one of the really exciting parts about the campaign is the completed capital work, which is just amazing. Then the indefatigable Joe Lucking will provide us with a financial update. Joe is the treasurer of our capital campaign. And we're so grateful for the work that he does keeping track of the finances along with Fariba. And then we'll close by talking about what's next, what's to come, because there actually still are a number of exciting projects on the horizon that we will talk about. So Nils, if you want to go to the next slide. Wow, we're in the 5th year of this. All of this started back in 2021 with our architects, McDonald and Mack, who issued for us a building conditions assessment report. One of the very heartening things in that report was that they noticed was this is a building well taken care of. It's clear that investment has been made in this building, and that we are a congregation that cares for this building At the same time, they said that there were some very urgent issues that we as a congregation needed to deal with when it came to this building. And I'll quote, "The masonry and stained glass topped that list." So that was one of the main findings in the report, was that our masonry and stained glass needed help. And in a bit, Nils is gonna talk a little bit about what that involved with the masonry. But the masonry piece was so urgent that we kicked off that work in 2022 with funds that we had on hand. We didn't have the capital campaign pledges at that point. 2022, we also sold the 897 property. Well, we all used to colloquially call the Blue House next door. Those funds were then also put into the capital campaign. We didn't form the capital campaign committee until 2023, at the beginning of 2023. And when I was looking back at this, one of the things that I thought was amazing was that we formed that committee at the beginning of 2023, and we closed the campaign at the end of that year. And I can't believe how much we accomplished in 1 year. It's credit to the committee members and how devoted they were to the job. It also is because we hired a consultant who was instrumental in helping us to both discern what this congregation could give, but also give us the playbook for how we could execute a capital campaign in such a short amount of time. All the while, the masonry work kept going. So it was a very real demonstration outside our window as we met of what we were working towards, which was really meaningful. The other thing that was remarkable in 2023 was 1.2 million in pledges. Our consultants had told us, you can expect from your congregation anywhere between 900,000 and 1.2 million. And we exceeded 1.2 million, which we hit the high end, and we actually exceeded the high end. So that was really impressive. In 2024, so that was just last year, the masonry work was completed, all of it. And it's actually astounding to think about that because that's every wall around this church and the bell tower as well, inside and out. And inside is a piece of it, a big piece of it. And you know, we're gonna talk about the some of the work to come, but we also formed the organ committee, which Roberta is going to talk about. She's the chair of the organ committee in a little bit. And then one other thing, we also started the stormwater mitigation in 2024, which is a very important piece for those of you who have spent any time in the basement in years past. And then that brings us to 2025, which wow, we're already at the halfway point of the 3-year pledge cycle. And that actually is the whole reason why we're giving this update, is to let the congregation know midway through what the status is of everything. Can you go to the next slide, Nils?
Well, you get to the slide, and just a quick note that that $250,000 grant from Minnesota Historical Society was specifically for the bell tower restoration, and it comes out of the Legacy Grants program.
So now we'll talk about the completed work. I'll start, and then I'll turn it over to Nils for a little bit of the detail. So just to orient you, what we're talking about here is most of the completed work. Where it's really completed, there's a check mark. And where there's a portion of it completed, there's what's called a Harvey ball. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Harvey balls, but think about filling a clock as a project. And so roughly water management would be 75% complete. Harvey balls get used a lot in the consulting world. Anyways, so masonry and foundation repair, I mentioned this earlier, but tuck pointing of all the exterior walls, stone replacement, and north face window wells, those were all huge accomplishments for masonry and foundation repair. And Nils, you can tell, hopefully you'll talk about how bad a shape some of the stuff was and what
I'll
needed
go into
to be
exhaustive detail.
Yeah. Nils lived it day to day with American Masonry. The chimes tower or bell tower, similar thing. That all needed to be tuck pointed, interior and exterior, and stone replacement. With water management, I think one thing to point out to everyone, that beautiful new parking lot on the north wall, that was regraded and the window wells were filled in. So that is one of the big reasons why it is no longer leaking in the basement, is because of that regrading. So I'm sure all of you like the markers that tell you where to stop, and even if you touch them, they sort of bend nicely. The bigger piece is the water management with that parking lot. And then I put this up here just because it's under, I should have oriented you. You may recall we kind of broke our projects into the categories of restore, enhance, and sustain, which is to say there are some things we just need to restore back to their original condition. There are other things we're hoping to make even better. And then the sustain piece is about creating a sustainable building. Window and door maintenance is one of those things where we do have some maintenance that still needs to be done, and potentially some doors that need to be replaced. I know the vestry just had a discussion about some of the doors not being up to par when it comes to security, and that's definitely something that is on the radar of the capital work that's going on. So, Nils, would you just like to?
Sure. I'll come over here where the camera is pointed.
Well,
I won't go into exhaustive detail. I'll spare you that. But a little preface. A year ago, I was visiting a friend in Oxford, England, and he had a friend who is working on the restoration of the Oxford colleges. And we met at the pub and we had a long conversation about lime mortar. No one else was interested, but we got very excited. But the cool thing was, the cool takeaway, so he had Victorian buildings about the same period as this, and they were using the same methods of restoration that we are. So that was really cool to hear. So those of you who've been around long enough, remember in about 1980, 84, somewhere in the mid 80s, the entire building got tuck pointed, which means the old mortar got chipped out and replaced. And it looked decent when you looked at it if you walked around. But the problem was they used a modern mortar that didn't expand and contract properly. So that meant in our winter, summer, freeze-thaw seasons, the stone ended up giving way rather than the mortar giving way. So we had a bunch of stone breaking, a bunch of stone flaking out. So our architect recommended removing all that modern mortar and putting in the historic mortar that they would have used in 1895, which is, in some ways, appears to be a simpler technology, but is actually much better for the preservation of old building because the mortar will give before the stone gives. So every inch of mortar all the way around both the 1895 building and then this part of the building, which is later 1915, has all been replaced. So it's the foundation stones in this part of the building and then the entire exterior fabric of the church. All those broken stones were replaced. And you can see, when you look, you'll see some stone that's a little brighter, shinier than the other stone. That's all the stone that got replaced because in some points the stone was actually crumbling when they started taking it apart. We had a running joke that Angela, architect, couldn't touch it because she would walk up and just start brushing the stone and it would crumble and fall from my fingers. It's like, don't touch that part. So all that crumbling stone's replaced, all the mortar's been replaced. The interior of the tower is a slightly different story. A lot of that is brick rather than stone. And the mortar between the bricks, much of it had fallen out. It had crumbled. So the stones and the bricks, and there's actually quite amazing arches, brickwork inside the tower. I took a bunch of pictures of them if you go to the construction update. They were supporting themselves because of the bricklayers' art, because the mortar was gone. And so they've gone, American Masonry has replaced every inch of mortar up in there.
And then just pointing out, that's because if you think about it, the chime tower is open to the elements.
Yeah.
Those louvers, you see, there's no glass, there's no protection from the temperature, from the humidity, from even minor bits of moisture getting in there.
Oh, and then the louvers have all been renewed.
Yeah.
They had been badly renewed in the 1980s. So if you look now, the tiles on the louvers themselves have all been refreshed and painted. The ones that were fabricated replaced the ones that were broken. And there was a lot of really bad weathering inside the tower where the wind was whipping through those lancets. And that has all been beautifully restored as well. Anything else you want me to?
I will also point out that when you look at the stone outside, you will see places where there are cracks. Those are vertical cracks. Those are not problematic. We replaced roughly 30% of the stone at ground. And we ended up needing to go over a stone budget in the tower because of the condition of the stone. And I do also want to point out that the restoration work done in the 1980s was the best that was done at the time. So, this is good work following good work, but also an awareness of materials that has changed.
Oh, and one other important restoration we haven't mentioned, didn't have on the Harvey balls, were the steps outside this door. They were in terrible shape. And when they pulled it apart, they said they were amazed it hadn't collapsed on its own. And that was also a major source of water infiltration. So that has been restored as well as the stoop outside this door. Anything else? Is that good enough?
I think that's it.
All right.
You just had it. All of these photos, by the way, are available on the construction update site. That's where I pulled these photos from.
Which is on our webpage.
Yeah.
We're going to talk from here. I need to pull the microphone.
What's that? No, I'm going. I'm going.
I'm go back over there.
I'm turning over to Joe now.
Hi, I am Joe Lucking. I'm the treasurer of the Capital Campaign, Cornerstone Campaign, since inception. Cliff notes, $1.5 million in income. On the next slide, you'll see $1.4 million worth of expenses. Got about 120 sitting in waiting for use, and most of that is dedicated to the organ. Any questions? No, seriously. You can see our pledge income and seed funding so far, a little over $1 million. We have the proceeds from the sale next door that went into the campaign. We've gotten some grants. We've got money dedicated to the organ. That's our 1.5 in income so far. On the next slide, we do compare what we've actually spent compared to what the projected need was. So you can see that there is still some significant spending to come. Like I said, we've got about 122 in bank right now, 23. From a pure financial status and flowchart status, this is where we are. On the next slide, I think there's something that is going to take a little bit more time to review. If you look at the pledges, I broke them down into quartiles so that we have pledges that are 100% paid. There are 31 of them, which represents 23% of the 133 pledges that were made. That paid amount, or that pledged amount, was 194,000. The paid amount is 194,000. The average pledge at that that's been paid is 6,200. And there's nothing remaining. And then the next lines follow that same pattern. See that, 75% plus, that is a little bit lower in terms of what's been counted and paid. Because most everybody is sitting around the halfway paid mark, which coincidentally we're halfway through the period. So that makes sense. Some are a little further along than others. A lot of the 25% plus are actually in the 40% range. So that's pretty good. And we have a few that we know are only going to come in at the end. And that is, that's been planned, it's been in a flow. And in the planning discussions all along, that amount is likely to come in.
So when you say the end, talking about the end of this year.
End of the 3-year period, so 18 years from now. And then of course we've got there's going to be needs for additional funding. We've got some grant applications that are possible, and we have dedicated gifts that are yet to be made. With that, what kind of questions do you have? Great.
Are there any plans for the interior? I keep thinking of the altar area, which is really.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that with the work to come. It's an extensive list.
Yeah, and if I could just, when Joe showed me this slide, two things jumped out at me, or I should say I had two takeaways. Number one is, I think we're about where you would expect us to be. If there is $1.2 million pledged and 31 households paid all of their pledge upfront, you would expect that the remaining would be less than half of 1.2 million, and it is around $500,000 instead of 600,000. The other big takeaway for me is those remaining pledges are very important. So please.
Yeah. We just submitted a grant application to cover the east facing window. The pre-application submit was hit on Friday. So if you are a praying sort, I encourage you to stand facing the Minnesota Historical Society. Which I think might be east of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any other financial questions? Now we can go on to the
Great, thank you.
next slide. And we'll get into the what's next section. So more Harvey balls. And as you might expect, these Harvey balls aren't as filled. So I already mentioned water management. That white space, the 25% that's not done, Joy will talk a bit more about the work that still needs to be done in a few minutes. Stained glass window restoration, as Joy just alluded to, that is a big piece of the work that needs to be done. Again, as I mentioned, the building conditions assessment report called out stained glass windows as one of those urgent things that needs to be taken care of. We have restored the window above the west entry door. That was some urgent work that needed to be done. All of the stained glass windows have been triaged, if you will. They're level 1 through 4, with 1 being the most urgent, and so on and so forth. Right now, the next step is to restore those level 2 windows, which includes the big east window. There will be supports added to the east window to make it more structurally sound. but also storm panes put in front of it to protect it from the outside elements. And as Joy alluded to, that is one of the big grant writing pieces right now, is submitting a grant to the Minnesota Historical Society to the tune of about $200,000 to help fund the restoration of that window. There are about 5 level 2 priority windows, and they cost somewhere between 10 and 20,000 a piece to restore. So you can do the math on that. It's the probably 100,000-ish to restore the level 2 windows. So that's windows. Then recondition the organ. I'm excited to say we have a whole slide on this. So I'm not going to go into that detail, but suffice it to say there is a committee. They've actually have bids that have been submitted, and then I won't reveal anything else because that's all for the committee to talk about. Chancel restoration. So for those of you who don't walk that often up into the choir stalls and around the altar, there are tiles that are held on with duct tape, and the tiles need to be replaced there. We already have a $40,000 bequest that is earmarked for that restoration. Although it will probably cost in the range of $100,000 to $150,000, we think, because in addition to the tile work, there will be reconfiguration of the choir stalls and also work to make it handicapped accessible. So,
I want to just clarify that it's not an ADA compliance, it's a physical accessibility because spacing of choir stalls and choir stalls to root screen are insufficient for safe passage. I just want to be clear on that piece there.
Yeah. And then this last piece, the HVAC replacement. Many of you are aware we do not have air conditioning in the church. Also, we have an aging boiler that heats this place in the winter time. You may have seen a scary number on one of Joe's slides, which said sustain $2 million. One of the things I wanted to just ground everybody in is that that is an original estimate from the architect for geothermal energy. So that is like kind of the dream, if you will, is $2 million. Reality is that if we were to go the conventional route, that number would be a lot lower. So I just wanted to help everybody understand what that $2 million number is. The sad reality is that in years past, as we discussed the HVAC piece, the federal environment and federal funding was a lot different then than it is now. And we had a little bit more hope that there would be funds available to go down that sustainability path. That said, I think it's safe to say that there are a lot of people in this congregation who would like to go down that sustainability path, find it inspiring, the notion that we would be a net zero emissions kind of church. And the fact of the matter is that we don't know enough right now. And so the big next step with that sustainability HVAC piece is to form a committee to start looking at what the options are. I think we need to understand what all the funding options are, but also understand what all of the energy possibilities are, right? Geothermal may be too expensive. Are there some hybrid options we can go with that include solar and traditional as well? Those are all things that need to be looked at. So I think the big message on HVAC is we just don't know enough right now. Are there any questions on, I maybe will, before we move on, Sherry, you had asked about chancel restoration. Is there anything more you wanted to know about that? Because we don't really have a detailed slide going on.
Because there is an unevenness of that platform.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if anything has been done to
Yeah, in
actually
the
talk
appendix.
about the surface and evening it so that the tile doesn't break off.
Oh, yes, yeah, our architect is developing construction documents to restore the subfloor as well as the tile. Yeah. And you may have noticed that if you go into the sanctuary around the altar, there's a lot of subsidence around the altar. She's coming out with plans to, we're not gonna be able to level it because that'll be too expensive, but to make it less of a trip hazard up there.
Very.
So underneath the pulpit, there's tile. And there are places where tile is been stored.
Mark Ellenberger's garage.
No problem. In order so that
Burger knows it.
So we do have sufficient tile.
Yeah.
We'll also be removing the asbestos tile, which is currently there. So there'll be asbestos mitigation process. Okay.
Good. Shall we move on to the organ update?
If you have not caught the artwork in the parish hall right now, this is Roberta, the artist.
I'm Roberta Roth, and I'm, excuse me, already nervous because I'm not going to be as funny as these other guys. All fact-based. With respect to the organ renovation, there's actually been quite a work that has been going on behind the scenes for at least a couple of years. A formal organ committee was formed in 2024. We have 7 members on that team. And during that time frame, a number of requirements, I'm going to call them organ requirements, were developed by Nils, and we submitted that information to 7 different organ vendors and asked for them to submit bids. We actually received bids back from 3 different vendors. The other 4 have refused to respond or said they were too busy or the project was maybe too small for what they wanted. Well, you know, one was working on National Cathedral, so there you go. So we were down to 3 vendors, which actually gave us a really nice set of proposals to work from. We have an external consultant that Nils retained, and he's reviewed all these documents from vendors, and most of which is from bequests and donations set aside. And we do have an opportunity to pursue funding for a grant. I believe we'll probably start up on that once we've talked to the vestry formally. The assumption is that we will be using a piano during the renovation, and right now, depending on when we have funding and when we can get started, the renovation itself is perhaps 6 to 9 months, maybe. And we'll know more when we get into the details. And I've already mentioned a couple times that we're bringing a recommendation to vestry.
Can you remind everyone the age of the organ?
64.
Yeah.
61 years old.
Installed in 64.
Years old.
Installed in 64. 61 years old, and since that time, it's had a couple of enhancements functionality wise and minimal repair and enhancement. So it's basically almost as is when it was installed, and parts are wearing out. I mean, frankly, parts are wearing out. So we're at a risk of stuff not working. Yes.
Organ failure.
No.
So if there are any organ donors in the room.
So medical to me, I
A few people have asked, I just want to clarify, the organ work we had done a few years ago was to move the blower from inside of the organ case downstairs that was supposed to be in the first place. So that was not restoration work, that was simply moving a component downstairs. So that the floor wouldn't vibrate.
I think I have one before, but is there any interdependence between the chancel restoration and restoration?
It would be totally ideal, but
There are opportunities for that.
but I think
It doesn't-
it's
doesn't- either one could happen.
But
it'd be ideal if they could happen simultaneously, but
Yeah.
that would take divine intervention.
well, and the piano piece, the second last bullet, that's during the chancel restoration and during the organ restoration. We hopefully could do them simultaneously and reduce the time without an organ.
Right, so what's that chancellor street?
Correct, because it'll be plastic sheet.
We'll be worshiping on the floor of the nave.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, well then I can bust out my next joke, which was we worshiping on the floor of the nave, where angels prostrate fall.
Now,
Thank you, I'll be here all night. So, if you've been outside, you'll notice that there's been some damage to the green and to the gardens from the heavy equipment. The garden committee did a bang up job of preparing those gardens by moving desirable plant materials out of the garden into a community garden hosted by Cherie, and co-signed on by his then warden Steve Dickey. And so those plants will eventually come back. But I do want to say that lots was done in order to get ready for the work that was going to trample the gardens. So the South Garden, so back to Green and Gardens. No, I'll go to South Garden. So the South Garden, part of our building conditions assessment and part of our assessment following the masonry construction is that South Garden needs to be regraded, which means the part closest to the building needs to come up between 4 to 8 inches. So an average of 6 inches across the entire front garden, regraded. So the whole garden is going to end up getting scraped and refilled. So that also means that it will have to be rebuilt as a garden. So there are a couple of things I'll go into on the next slide about that specifically, but there's going to be a real eye towards incorporating more pollinators, native plants, and really making a garden that reflects our sustainability values. The green will be leveled and reseeded. Part of the green will be a bee lawn. So if you're familiar with that, once again, looking at sustainability and taking care of our planet. There is a garden committee. They got 3 bids. The preferred bid is a $23,000 bid. That and cost of plant materials will run about $30,000. It's already been approved by the vestry. And the work will begin late summer and early fall of this year. So you can go to the next bit. So the like I said, the goals here, regrade. We have to move all plants 2 feet away from the building. That's another piece of it. And so what you see here, and there's also some plant material that needs to be removed because it's too close and too large for where it is. So everything that's green will be planted garden. You'll see that it now comes all the way out to the sidewalk. The little sort of blobs that go along, that's a path through the garden to improve access for tending the garden. There'll also be some irrigation there. If you worship at our 8:15 in the summer or pizza church, you'll know that we have an altar that we have been using outdoors. There'll be some hardscaping put in to make a spot for that, so it's not in the green. And that portion, that triangular portion, will be bee lawn. Once again, this reflects the goals set out in that original building conditions assessment, specifically around water mitigation, as well as our desire to have plantings that reflect our understanding of how we tend the earth. So special thanks to the garden committee. There's a whole list of who's on that committee on the board out there, as well as a copy of this design. Jenny Krantz, who is a landscape architect, is the one who drew out the design and got the ball rolling on that major piece of design work. Larry, did I miss anything?
I just want to thank Cynthia Dalzell and Deacon George for doing the negotiating with the contract.
Yes. We are rich with people with amazing gifts and skills in the arena of garden tending in their professional lives and training. And so it's been really wonderful. So Larry, thank you. And thank you to the whole committee. Oh, questions? Yeah, here.
On the last slide.
Yep.
Circles are, I know.
Oh,
One was a hard speed.
those are trees. So the big circles are existing trees. The smaller circles in here are where there's going to be larger woody plants. And I've heard talk of a few different options. And most recently, some really lovely natives. So that is what those circles represent. Any other questions?
Thanks, Joy.
Yeah.
So just wanted to close on giving you a sense of where do we go from here? And I think about this in terms of what are we doing through the end of this year, and then what is on that 18-month time horizon, bringing us to the end of the 3-year pledge cycle. So our priorities for the next 6 months are what Joy just talked about, grant writing for the Oregon refurbishment and also forming that HVAC committee. We also need to submit the grant for the east window repair to the Minnesota Historical Society. And we have had success in writing grants to them before. $250,000 of the masonry work was funded through the Minnesota Historical Society. And then over the next 18 months, the Oregon refurbishment, the east window and level 2 window repairs. Hopefully we will get all of those done in the next 18 months. Chancel repair, and the door replacement. And then finally, we want to launch that committee for the HVAC piece and learn more about what the realm of the possible is when it comes to creating a sustainable HVAC system for our church. I want to end on a note of gratitude. It's truly amazing and astounding what we have been able to do. And what I really think is inspiring about it is that the money has come from multiple sources, and we've been creative about how we've funded all of this. Whether it's bequests, whether it's the sale of real estate, whether it's grant writing, and of course, the core of it all, the individual household contributions that have come in. It's all working together to make this happen. And it's kind of astounding. We finished the masonry work. So thank you very much. And yeah, I'm excited for the next 18 months. Ann.
For a conversation about repair of the lich cake. It's in my funeral plans.
So we do know that there are many members of the Eaton Society, some in the room, who have planned giving, some of which is designated. Just got an email through this week. The property committee is coming up with a plan for a repair of the lich gate, where there's been some wood rot. That is now in the works. It's just a matter of them getting it done. So there is a plan in place and a woodworker who is going to be restoring those pieces. There is a wood sash on S9, which is one of the windows. There's a key for that. That also needs to be urgently replaced. And all of our woodwork does need to be repainted. So we're sort of definitely at a point in that cycle where that needs to happen. But there is a plan in place for the Lich Gate as of this week. And everything we've talked about today have been projects that were designated by the building condition assessment in some way. And the priority has been given to those things which keep out water. So that is part of how we have prioritized the ordering, which is why the garden is next, because of that necessary regrading. The chancel piece, and I just want to clarify this because it has been one of those, when are we going to do it? When are we going to do it? When are we going to do it? And yes, I'm looking at you, Mark. So right now, and this is an update from our architect, we are going to be using a general contractor for that work, which will help us attract a tile setter. It's very, very specific restoration work that has to happen. And the impediment to getting that work done has quite literally been finding a tile setter who will take the job. So we will be working through a general contractor because of the scope of that work. We don't know the timeline yet. The other piece just to know about is that one of my learnings is how long things take. Because it's sort of like when you're trying to get something at home and it feels urgent, but the people you're ordering the new refrigerator from don't understand that all of your yogurt is at your neighbor's house right now. No, that's not happened this week. So anyway, things take a lot longer because you have to get the people to do the work. And because of the uncertainty around tariffs, one of the challenges facing the trades right now is actually even getting bids, because people are scared to give a bid and then have prices suddenly shift dramatically. So thankfully, a lot of the work we are pursuing is specialized enough that that should not pose an issue. But we do set out these ideal timelines. And when they don't happen, it's not because we've done something wrong as a community. It's because we are a community that is in the world and not of the world. And those realities in our larger economic landscape as here mean that sometimes things are going to take longer than we had hoped. So any other questions? Daniel and then Larry.
Seems to me that part of the waiting is.
Oh, yeah.
There's been a history, I think, of doing the best to get it done right with the right people.
Oh, yeah. No, we've been very clear that it has to be done right.
I should have made one more comment, and that is that relocating plants from the Marion Park Community Garden and saving ones that are here that we want to reuse is going to take a community effort. The committee itself doesn't have enough muscle power to do that. And so we will probably be calling for a couple of community work days, but we'll want some volunteers this fall and maybe again.
Yes. Yeah. I'd say definitely again next spring. So clear your calendars, folks. Pat and then Mark.
Yeah, just a clarification. Was that the big one over the?
Yeah, that's the big one.
I was gonna say, my understanding is the stained glass work will include making all of the side windows actually openable.
Yeah.
So we'll get more ventilation. Currently, you know, there are like 5 of them. Oh, yeah. So we'll have more here.
Yeah. And the reapplication, because this is our second attempt to get a grant for this window. The thing that might tip the balance in our favor is that we'll be having a custom triple pane high performance window made by Marvin Windows that will turn that interior glass into art glass. So it is entirely possible that it will never need to be restored again. Because climate control, and there also will be a steel armature on the interior that will not be visible to us, but that will support the glass from the inside as well. And each of those windows, the $10,000 to $20,000 windows, we know that there are people in our community who would like to make designated memorial gifts. And so we will also be inviting people to consider those window restorations as gifts to the congregation, should they feel so called.
And just one follow-up, I wanted to mention that, just because something is broken or needs to be fixed doesn't mean it shows up in capital campaign work. And that's actually a financial controls thing. One of the things on the finance committee that we do is be very thoughtful when there is capital work to be done, whether it comes out of our capital budget or comes out of the capital campaign funds that you have all provided. Because every year we have a capital budget to fix things, which generally Mark Ellenberger does. Right? Or he finds someone to fix it. So a good example is on the finance committee, we had a discussion about the broken fan in the kitchen and whether or not we could pay for that with capital campaign funds. And the answer was no. We did not communicate to the congregation that that was a need of this campaign. We want to be very, very specific about what we spend that money on so that we have the trust of the congregation that we are maintaining those controls. So that's one, to give you reassurance that we have those controls in place, but two, also, if there is something that you see that doesn't fall under here, ask us, and it's probably on Mark's list.
Yeah.
It's probably accounted for somewhere.
Yeah. Yes.
And you're telling people that people might want to have a memorial to like the window that has a picture of blah 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 whatever. I mean, is that something that people are going to know so they can pick out the window that they want? It might be a person might be like that and like that. Or is that like too much for, I mean, your plan itself might have that. Yeah, just so people know what they're, they can be specific what they're donating for. It might even encourage people to say, well, wow, we really like that.
So after we do the east window, we'll be looking at the rest of the windows because that was the next urgent priority. And so there will be a list of windows identified, and folks can decide which of those windows they might like to give a gift towards. And how much. And so when we had the west window taken out and restored, that was $10,000. But that was 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And that has no moving parts. So like I said, it'll be somewhere between 10 and 20 for each of those windows. And just to be clear, we have the 2 memorial windows which have figures in them. Those are actually both level 3 priority. All of those diamond light windows are Tiffany windows. And per our stained glass consultant, Michael Pila, those are actually the higher quality Tiffany windows in the building. So our east window is also a Tiffany. But as far as Tiffany windows go, the diamond light ones are actually the truly remarkable windows that we have. But that's Michael Pila's opinion.
Well, mentioning the cost of a window, many people would be scared away, it's $30,000. But you can contribute to part of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, as long as that's clear. Otherwise, you might say, oh, I can't do that.
No. Part of this whole process with Todd and Paul and our wardens through 2 cycles of wardens and with Nils has been being really creative about how we seek out funding. We knew we couldn't do all this work as a congregation without looking at external sources. And part of that is actually recognizing that our building is not just for us. So when folks like the Minnesota Historical Society give us money, they are saying that they recognize the importance of this place in the community. So that is a huge piece of it. So that part's really exciting to get that affirmation. So grants, Historical Society, there's an organ grant that will be pursued, and there's another grant that we are writing that is going to do some various work around the building that is sort of small scale, and then another grant that we will have out that could potentially handle doors. So lots is in the mix, and kudos to the committee, to the grant writers, to all the folks who've been involved in this, and to the whole community. This is not a one person or even a committee piece of work. This is the work of all of us, and it's amazing. We're done as soon as there aren't any more questions.
Yeah, we have finished in 57 minutes, so. Thank you, everyone.
God, a strategy to only have me talk a couple of times officially is perfect.